often get asked how to sew the binding on using an invisible stitch. This is great. So I have machine sewn my binding on the front, and now I'm going to roll the binding to the back and create this absolutely perfect finish to a really fun quilt. So I have my my needle all threaded and knotted. See the video for how to thread and knot a needle if you haven't already seen that. And I'm going to go right up through the fold. So I've come in through the back, and I'm going to go right out the top of the fold, right off the edge. So now it's nice and secure. Now I don't worry about all these little threads here. That doesn't matter. I'm just going to roll them all into the edge. So I make sure it's nice and firm, or flat, nice and flat. I roll it over. I don't roll the actual quilt. I'm just rolling the binding. And you want to make sure that your binding runs flush to your quilt. So now I've got the thread coming out the end of the fold. I'm going to go between the backing and the binding and I'm going to go between the backing and the pieced front. So I'm going to come right out that edge. Now the secret to this is the closer that you stay to the very edge of the binding, the more invisible your stitches come. Now see, I'm doing this stitch with yellow thread against black and teal, which means that if there's anything showing on my stitch, you're going to see it. So now I've come out to the bottom of the fold, and the secret to this is going straight down 90 degrees off of that, between the layers, and then back up again. Every once in a while I'll check to make sure I have not come out the front, and that's basically all there is to it. I'm keeping my stitches about a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and that is how you do the binding. So I'm coming right off the edge. I'm going straight down in between the layers, keeping as close to the thread the edge as I can. Now, if I was using black thread, you wouldn't even see my stitches, but take a look at that. See those stitches? You have to literally turn the binding up and look on the side to even seeing this. So here, I'll show you a couple more stitches so that you get a hang of this. Coming straight off, right off where that thread came out the edge, going in between the layers, picking up the very edge. And you see you can get a rhythm with this too. Now I keep my finger right on the back where I'm stitching to not only stabilize it, but to also know where I'm at and double check to make sure that I'm not catching the front at all. But now see that stitch here, this is a good example. See this stitch, I didn't go straight at a 90 degree, I'm a little bit off. And because there's an angle, it doesn't line up with the threading, you can see that stitch. But if I had black thread, you wouldn't even notice it. It's not that bad, but coming right off where it's coming in and continuing on. And a little secret I do, how I finish my bindings on my quilt, is I pull off a couple of lengths of thread and I just commit to do a thread a day. I don't try to sit down and do marathons. Once in a while I'll do a marathon on hand binding, but for the most part I do 1 or 2 threads during a movie in the evening, and that's my excuse to sit down and watch TV. Now every so often you're going to catch your thread and go back through the loop to make a knot in it, and then that will hold it down in case ever anything comes off. Then it'll actually have a catch so that it doesn't completely unravel the edge. So that's probably about every 4 to 6 inches. I'll make a small half hitch knot on the binding. And that is how you do an invisible stitch and make a perfect binding for a beautiful quilt.